Hi folks, Maineprepper. Today's gear review is going to be on the Multiplier 600 by Gerber. I don't have it new in the box because this was issued to me. So what I've done is done some research to get prices out there to see what is available and also what sort of case it comes with. And there are variations and varieties. Today I'm going to be doing this compared slightly to a benchmark type tool, which is my Leatherman Surge, which I think is it's my choice and my recommendation for a carry in your EDC or your survival kit, and also just for general around the farm type use. That being said, I want to be fair and accurate in everything I do and say, and so I will compare apples to apples. This is not going to be where I try to do anything but give you accurate information. Okay, so let's get started first of all with price. This Surge without the accessory kits, and I am not going to mention any of the accessories and tools except in passing, but just this alone with the sheath that I got is about a $70 item when I buy it off brand new in the box from Amazon or eBay. This tool, brand new in the box, is about $45 and perhaps a little more if you want to get a really nice sheath. The sheath that came with my Surge was not very good. I didn't like it, and so I found an upgrade that I'll be getting, and I'll do a comparison of those sheaths later on when that does arrive. The sheath that this was issued with, which can be purchased along with the multi-tool online, together is going to run you just a little over $50. So to be fair and to do this right, I'm going to review with the sheath I have in hand, because I did rate the sheath much higher than the one that comes with the Leatherman. So to be fair, let's say just a little over $50, making a $20 difference between this tool and sheath and this tool and sheath. I hope that's fair. I hope that's accurate. So let's talk about the sheath for just a moment. The sheath is made out of a heavy 600 denier nylon, very rugged, very well sewn. You can see a lot of double stitching in some places, but the stitching is much tighter. That being said, it's still somewhat single stitched in places, although it does feel a lot thicker and a lot more robust. The most important part to me, beyond the flap, is going to be how you can attach this to your gear. How do you wear this? And this has a malice clip with a very aggressive tab on it, and it's made by Gerber. It's an integral part of the sheath in the sense that, yes, it is detached, but they did design it for themselves and for their sheaths. It is very thick plastic. It looks like it'll hold up quite well. That's a concern, especially if you're military and you're airborne and you wear this on the outside of your gear. You don't want to, if you've ever been in a partial malfunction or you've been tangled with another jumper, the last thing you want is, what happens is all kinds of stuff that's not firmly affixed gets torn loose. Also, and I've had a few bad parachute exits from the aircraft banking at the wrong time, or me just being clumsy, and wound up having at one time some of my gear snag on the door of the aircraft, and it wound up ripping loose, and it was still in the aircraft when I left, and I wasn't going to be able to go back and get it. So this is not going anywhere. It's going to hang on there really well. And it can also be used as a belt loop. You can just run this right onto your belt. So I like the sheath. The sheath does not have a place inside for the tool attachment kit, though, that you can purchase separately for about $15 online. But it does have one interesting little piece, and that is it has a place for this Torx head L-shaped tool, which we're going to cover the use for this in just a moment. And it's got the same size head, it appears, on both ends of this tool, very much like an Allen wrench would be. It fits neatly into this compartment here just behind the Velcro. The Velcro is very aggressive on this tool. I like it, and with the multi-tool in place, it covers down neatly. You can see it folds right over the top. We've got good attachment. When I put all of my stuff in the Leatherman, it tends to be a little bit loose. It doesn't seem to go down all the way. And so that was something I'm going to rectify, hopefully, with another pouch. That being said, I did discover from a very good subscriber that, and I put thanks to him back on the review to the Leatherman Surge as well, that hole in the bottom is not a weep hole, as I mischaracterized it and mislabeled it. It is, in fact, so that while you're working, you can shove this tool open and using it in plier mode. So if you've ever been out working a lot and using your pliers, you can have this where you can get it in and out quickly, and yet at the same time, it's going to, if you get it into that little weep hole, or I'm sorry, that little retention hole, it's going to hold in there very well. So if I'm working and I bounce around upside down, it's not going to come out too easily. It feels like it has a little bit of a grab to it. You can shove it in there pretty good. So that's kind of a neat feature. I don't do that much with the pliers, so it's not going to be an issue for me, but you may. Now, if you try the same thing with the Gerber, it's just going to loosely kind of rattle around in there. So that's a minor point, but you may find that useful to you. All right, enough on the sheath. Let's talk about the actual multiplier, which has 14 tools, and I counted there are 14 tools here. So let's start first with the part that's most obvious, the multiplier tool and the pliers on the end. This plier set is a needle nose plier. Opened up, you can see we have some pretty good, fairly aggressive teeth on here, which will give you some grip if you are doing any work with the needle nose. And you have some ridges cut into the standard plier portion here so that you could work and get a bolt or something loose. Here is where this tool is somewhat unique to the others. If you'll notice where I'm pointing, there is a triangular shaped piece of metal on both sides of the pliers. This is actually a replaceable carbide cutting bit. And the nice thing about this is the triangular blade is the same blade on all three sides. So if I take this piece out by using the provided tool, let me see if I can get my fat fingers in there, I can then take this blade, pick it up, and turn it 120 degrees, put it back in place, use the screw and the attached or the provided tool, and hopefully I can get this lined up right. And voila, I have replaced the blade. This is really handy if you are out in the middle of nowhere and you're doing a lot of cutting. Even if you can get the replacement part, if you've been downrange or in some strange location, you know what I'm talking about when you say, sometimes the mail doesn't run regularly. An interesting story, some friends of mine, they were out at WROL province, and they only could get most of their supplies and little things like toothpaste sent to them by very kind people back in the States by U.S. mail. And one day they were waiting for the mail truck, or the mail run, which was run by a ground armored convoy, and local nationals brought it inside of sealed containers to arrive along with a lot of other supplies, including food. And the ground armored convoy got hit and blew up all the mail. And you know, that's a federal offense, but I don't think they cared. Okay, so back to the subject at hand. So there's 1, 2, 3 tools, and a fourth tool is down here in the base, and I'll point to that with this by placing it inside. And you can see where I am grasping in here. This is sort of a crimper, is all it is. It's a place to crimp. No, it's not a blasting cap crimper. Please don't do that. You'll blow everybody up. Okay, it's simply a crimper, a place where you can crimp wire in there. It's a pincher, if you will. Okay, and I'm just pointing with that. So that's the fourth tool. Now let's talk about what's inside the handle, shall we? First, there is a blade that's actually about 2 3/4 of sharpened steel. It's sharpened on both sides, and you can see that. It's factory sharp. It's very sharp. This one needs dressing up though. I haven't yet used it, and yet I can feel by running my hand that this side is smooth, accurately done. This one needs to be dressed just a little bit. That's okay, not a problem. Too easy to do. Let me put this back out of the way so I don't have an accident. Next tool is a very narrow screwdriver and a sort of a bottle opener here on it as well. So you have in here a screwdriver and bottle opener, but I think they just count it as one tool. So that's kind of neat. And that's a very, interestingly, even though the slot isn't very wide, it's not very, it's kind of narrow too, but not ultra fine, where you might be tending to break it off. And here we have the wider flathead screwdriver attachment, and you can see the profile is fairly the same as this other one. Let me break that out real quick so you can see it, a side-by-side comparison, that the profile on these two is very similar. Okay? And most of us guys are going to use this for a pry bar, right? On one of these two tools, I forget which one, you would simply put the bit attachment and you would be able to use the other tools. And I think it's a 10-bit attachment that they sell for about $15. Not as good a bargain as the Leatherman's attachment kit, but I haven't done a lot of looking for one. And here is something that appears to be an awl, but it lacks the little hole for doing any stitching with. But it does have something at least trying to address that. And then it comes the file. Now this file is different from the file on our Surge in that it is a file on both sides. If you remember, the Surge was a file on one side and it was a diamond-coated sharpener on the other side. This is actually a two-sided file, and it has two different patterns of file on it. One pattern is a diamond pattern here, and the other is a single direction angled pattern, which is standard to most mill type files. Here's the thing about using a file. Whenever you have a file, this is a quick class, you'll notice in one direction you get some kind of traction, and in the other direction it might be a little smooth. Same thing on this side. This side is cutting and that side is not. Now, this file seems to cut in both directions, but let me caution you on that. The normal way you use a file, and we'll pretend like we're going to file my finger. I'm not going to do it hard. When you file, you want to apply pressure, and in this direction, like so. And if you're ever sharpening a knife, you want to make sure you have gloves on, or you're going to sharpen your finger right off. Press down, and then when you get to the bottom stroke, you lift up. Now I'm exaggerating this, but the reason I'm doing this is so that you can see. What you don't want to do when you file is this. It may seem to go quicker, but what you're actually doing is you're dulling the teeth. When you finish, you want to always clean this out, because if you leave rust or wood or anything else or metal, the metal will rust, the wood will contain water, or it'll get water in it and soak water from the air, and it'll turn into either a gum, which makes this dull, or it'll actually rust this file blade out. All of this is 410C steel, by the way, which is just 10 lower than the Leatherman, which is 420C steel. 410 and 420 and 440 do not stay sharp as long as 1095, but the good news is they sharpen quicker. So that's kind of the rule of thumb. Now, I realize there's a lot of other data out there, but I don't want to get it too lost in the weeds on too many details. As a basic rule of thumb, the lower the number, the softer the steel, the higher number, the harder the steel. All right, let's talk about this blade now, which is a sheep's foot, and they have a sharpening tool that didn't come with it, but you can buy, and it has the profile matched exactly for these bigger teeth on here. The sheep's foot is always a little bit difficult to sharpen, though, I will say that. It takes a bit of skill. Some people will cheat and they'll just sharpen the backside, and that works for a little while, but eventually you lose the teeth. But in a pinch, it'll work. Our next tool, I'm going to talk about this one last. Our next tool, running down the line, is a Phillips head screwdriver, and you can see the pattern on it. It's a fair one. I wouldn't try to necessarily work on circuit boards on my computer with it, but it is fairly small and it does look pretty sturdy. Just remember, whenever you're using any of these screwdriver bits, you want to push them in firmly when you do. Otherwise, you stand a chance of stripping out the screw or ruining your Phillips head. All of these parts are replaceable, and they do sell replacement tools and parts to go with it. And then finally is their variation of a can opener, and I'm going to show you this in comparison because there's kind of a difference. Not that you may be doing a lot of can opening, but let me just show you what's on the Leatherman Surge by way of comparison, just for size and for pattern. And you'll notice on the surge that there is actually a sharpened edge on here. And this one has an angled edge, which either way will cut and open a can. And something that the surge did not come with, but that this one did, is something that's right up my alley, which is, because I have lost a knife before and it was really painful. I had to do a hurt feelings report and everything, is this lanyard hole, or this lanyard tool. And I've ordered a lanyard attachment for my Leatherman, knowing myself as I do. All right, now let's talk about why I chose my surge over any of the other multi-tools out there, including the Leatherman Super Tool. Here's the reason why. When I need the blade, I can't just pull a blade out. I have to always, for use of any tool on here, deploy the pliers, open up, swivel it around, get my blade out, make my cut, put my blade away, close the pliers. That's a little bit too many steps, especially if you're opening and closing your knife. You're going to get really weary of this thing. And so, what's my overall recommendation? For $20 more, you get a lot more tool. That being said, if you handed me this tool and it was the only one out there, it would be a very useful tool. It has a problem though, and both the Leatherman and the Gerber tool have a little bit of a safety issue. And when you're out in the bush or out in a survival situation, injuries can become much more pronounced. If I am back here and I pinch a big chunk out of my hand, well, you know, I'll just be on light duty or on a profile for a little while my hand heals up. If I do that out in the bush, I'm in serious pain. So you always want to wear a pair of gloves. And I recommend you get a pair of regular $10 work gloves, the $10 leather pigskin or goatskin glove, because two reasons. Number one, you're not just using your gloves for work with a knife or an axe or anything else, but you're also going to be wearing your gloves when you're working around the fire. And you get a good burn on your hand, especially across your fingertips. And that can get infected because you're constantly using your hands out there. Don't buy gloves that have any synthetics, plastic, rubber, etc. in them, because once an ember hits that, it will burn through that quickly, and it will also ignite the plastic around it and make the burn much worse. Even if it's not bigger, it just seems to move it quickly into your skin and hang there like white phosphorus. Always do that, because in both tools you stand a chance of pinching, and I'm going to pinch my hand so you can see the discoloration there. The pinch factor is there on both. The pinch factor is slightly higher on this. Not as bad, because as you can see, this tool will not close down completely, but there is a space in here where the back of this blade can catch you. Okay. Folks, this has been my review of the Gerber 600 multi-tool. I don't recommend it over the Leatherman, but it's not a bad multi-tool at all. And if you have one, or if you can get one inexpensively, it's a nice addition. That being said, this is not as good a tool for use around the farm as this one's going to be. And once we get to our bug out location as preppers, we go from being in bug out survival mode to being homesteaders. And this is a much better tool for homesteading. You can also get this one in a stainless steel shiny one, just like my Leatherman. I just happen to have this issued to me. Folks, this has been the Maineprepper. Hey, thanks for tuning in. I hope this has been useful. Shoot me any questions or corrections. And thank you to Frankus2009 for pointing out that this is not a weep hole. And I hope that you guys got that now. Thanks. Okay, bye.